Imagine, for a moment, a world cloaked in silence, where the air itself seems to hold its breath. It's midnight, and you find yourself standing in the heart of an ancient library, its endless shelves stretching into shadow. The faint glow of a single candle flickers across forgotten tomes, their leather spines cracked with age, their pages heavy with secrets. Somewhere among them, hidden from prying eyes, lie manuscripts that whisper of ideas too perilous to speak aloud. Scientific concepts, theories, and truths that history has deemed forbidden. What is it about certain knowledge that makes it dangerous? Why are some ideas locked away, as if they possess a power to unravel the very fabric of our understanding? As you stand there, the silence seems to hum with questions. The scent of old parchment fills the air, and you can almost hear the faint rustle of pages turning in the darkness, as if the books themselves are eager to share their burdens. Knowledge, after all, is not merely a collection of facts. It is a force, a spark that can illuminate or destroy. Throughout time, there have been ideas so radical, so unsettling, that they were buried, not because they were false, but because they threatened the order of things. Think of the alchemists, scribbling cryptic symbols under the cover of night, or the astronomers gazing at stars through forbidden lenses, daring to suggest that the Earth was not the center of all creation. What made their thoughts so dangerous? Was it the ideas themselves, or the fear of what they might awaken in us? Consider the nature of prohibition itself. When we label something as forbidden, we do not erase its existence, we only deepen its allure. The hidden manuscript in this midnight library becomes more than a collection of words. It transforms into a siren's call, beckoning the curious to defy the boundaries set by others. And yet, there is a weight to this defiance. To seek forbidden knowledge is to step into the unknown, to risk not just censure, but a fundamental shift in how we see the world. What happens when we uncover a truth that challenges everything we've been taught? Does it liberate us, or does it leave us lost, adrift in a reality we no longer recognize? Take a moment to reflect on this. Imagine yourself reaching for one of those hidden volumes, your fingers trembling as they brush against the brittle edge of a page. What would you find written there? A theory so strange it defies logic, a truth so profound it could change the course of history. Or perhaps something darker, a warning, etched in fading ink, of why some doors should remain closed. The library around you seems to grow colder, the shadows deeper, as if the very walls are watching, waiting to see if you will dare to read on. But the question lingers, as persistent as the flicker of that solitary candle. Why are some ideas forbidden at all? Is it to protect us from harm, or to shield those in power from the consequences of a world turned upside down? History is littered with examples of knowledge deemed too dangerous to pursue, ideas that, once unleashed, could not be contained. Yet, in the stillness of this imagined library, it's hard not to wonder if the act of forbidding something doesn't create a greater danger. By hiding a truth, do we not give it a kind of immortality, a power it might never have held if left? In the light, as the midnight hour stretches on, the whispers of those forbidden manuscripts seem to grow louder, their voices weaving through the shadows. They speak of a world where curiosity is both a gift and a curse, where the pursuit of understanding can lead to exile or worse. And yet, there is something intoxicating in their call, a promise that beyond the fear, beyond the prohibitions, lies a deeper truth waiting to be claimed. What would you risk to hear it? What boundaries would you cross to know? In this quiet, haunted space, the choice feels both inevitable and impossible, a riddle as old as knowledge itself. Imagine a world where the boundaries of thought are not drawn by the vastness of imagination, but by the heavy hand of authority. A world where certain questions are whispered only in shadow, where the pursuit of truth can brand you an outcast, or worse. What is it about the human mind that compels us to seek beyond the permitted, and why do invisible walls rise to cage our curiosity? Let us wander back through the corridors of time, into an era when the very act of thinking could be deemed a crime, and explore the silent rebellion of those who dared to cross the boundaries of acceptable thought. Picture a quiet village in the heart of medieval Europe, where the air is thick with the scent of wood smoke and the murmur of prayer. Here, in the flickering light of a single candle, a scholar sits hunched over a forbidden text. His trembling hands trace lines of ink that challenge the very order of the world. He is not a warrior, not a king, but his thoughts are more dangerous than any sword. To question the divine structure of the heavens, to suggest that the earth is not the center of all creation, is to invite exile or the pyre. Yet he writes, driven by a quiet fire within, a need to understand that outweighs the fear of consequence. This man is not alone. Across centuries, countless others have faced the same peril. Their names often erased from history, their ideas buried beneath the weight of dogma. Consider the ancient Greek philosopher Anaxagoras, who dared to claim that the sun was not a god, but a fiery mass of rock, larger than any mountain. For this, he was banished from Athens, his teachings branded as impious. Or think of the Islamic scholar Averroes, whose interpretations of Aristotle clashed with religious orthodoxy, leading to the burning of his works and his exile from Cordoba. These were not men of violence, but of ideas, and yet their thoughts were seen as weapons, capable of unraveling the fragile threads that held society together. Why does the mind's reach so often provoke such fear? Is it because truth, once uncovered, cannot be unseen, cannot be unthought? Take a moment to reflect on this. What ideas in our own time are met with silence or scorn? Not because they are false, but because they threaten the foundations we cling to. Let us linger on the weight of those invisible lines, drawn not by logic, but by power. In every age, societies and institutions have sculpted the boundaries of permissible thought, deciding what is safe to know, what must remain unspoken. In the early days of the Church, scientific inquiry was often viewed through the lens of faith, acceptable only if it reinforced the sacred narrative. To stray beyond was to risk accusations of heresy, a word that carried the chill of death. Even in the Renaissance, a time of supposed rebirth, thinkers like Giordano Bruno paid the ultimate price for their speculations about an infinite universe, their voices silenced by flame. These stories are not mere relics of a distant past. They echo in the undercurrents of our own world, where certain questions still provoke unease, where the pursuit of knowledge can be labeled as dangerous or even traitorous. But what is it that makes an idea so threatening? Is it the idea itself, or the change it might unleash? A single thought, like a stone dropped into still water, creates ripples that cannot be contained. It challenges the order of things, upends hierarchies, and forces us to confront the fragility of what we hold as certain. Perhaps this is why societies have always sought to guard their intellectual borders, to keep the unknown at bay. Yet, in every era, there are those who step beyond the line, driven by a quiet defiance, a hunger for truth that no threat can extinguish. Their rebellion is not loud. It is the soft scratch of a quill in the dead of night, the murmur of a forbidden question passed from one mind to another. As we sit with this thought, let us ponder the cost of such boundaries. How many discoveries were delayed? How many minds were silenced because they dared to wander where they were not allowed? And yet, is there not also a strange beauty in this struggle? The very act of pushing against the forbidden seems to sharpen our understanding, to temper our resolve. Perhaps the boundaries of acceptable thought, though oppressive, are also the forge in which human progress is shaped. Take a moment to reflect on this. Have you ever felt the pull of a question you were told not to ask, the weight of a thought you were urged to abandon? What lies on the other side of that invisible line waiting to be uncovered? Let us rest here for a while, in the quiet tension between restraint and rebellion, between the safety of the known and the allure of the forbidden. The history of scientific censorship is not just a tale of oppression. It is a testament to the resilience of the human spirit, to our unyielding need to seek, to understand, to grow. Even in the face of exile, of condemnation, of death, there have always been those who carried the light of inquiry forward, passing it from hand to trembling hand. And perhaps, in their quiet defiance, we find a whisper of our own courage, a reminder that the boundaries of thought, though they may bind us, can never truly hold us. Imagine a quiet evening, centuries ago, under a vast, unpolluted sky where the stars seem to whisper secrets to those who dare to listen. In a small, stone-walled room, hidden away from prying eyes, a lone scholar sits hunched over a parchment, his quill trembling as he sketches a diagram that places the sun, not the earth, at the center of all things. This is no mere drawing, it is a rebellion, a quiet act of defiance against the very foundations of the world as it is known. The idea is as dangerous as it is beautiful, threatening to unravel the cosmic order upheld by the mightiest powers of the age. What drives a man to challenge the heavens themselves, knowing the cost could be his life? What kind of courage or madness fuels such a vision? In the early 16th century, a Polish astronomer named Nicholas Copernicus gazed at the night sky with a mind unwilling to accept the ancient story that the earth stood still while the heavens revolved around it. His observations, meticulous and relentless, led him to a conclusion so radical that he hesitated to share it with the world. The earth, he proposed, was not the unmoving heart of the universe, but a mere wanderer, orbiting the sun alongside other planets in a grand, harmonious dance. This was not just a scientific theory, it was a philosophical earthquake, shaking the very pillars of belief that held society together. To suggest that humanity was not at the center of creation was to question the divine order, to challenge the authority of those who claim to speak for the heavens. Copernicus knew the danger of his idea. He delayed publishing his work on the revolutions of the heavenly spheres until the very end of his life in 1543. As if sensing the storm it would unleash. Even then, his theory might have remained a quiet whisper among scholars, if not for another man, Galileo Galilei, who, decades later, took up the cause with a boldness that bordered on recklessness. Galileo, armed with a telescope of his own design, peered into the night and saw wonders that confirmed Copernicus's vision. Moons orbiting Jupiter, phases of Venus, imperfections on the sun itself. These were not the flawless, ethereal heavens of sacred doctrine, but a dynamic, ever-shifting cosmos that obeyed laws of motion, not divine decree. Yet, in the shadowed halls of power, truth was not a gift, but a threat. Galileo's observations were deemed heretical, an affront to the teachings of the Church, which held that the earth was the fixed center of God's creation. In hidden rooms, under the flickering light of candles, debates raged, not in the open air of reason, but in whispers of fear and accusation. To place the sun at the center was to displace humanity from its privileged place in the universe, to render us small, insignificant, adrift in an uncaring void. How could such an idea be allowed to stand? How could the keepers of knowledge bear the weight of a truth that might shatter the fragile order of the world? Take a moment to reflect on this. What must it have felt like to hold a truth so profound, yet so perilous, that speaking it aloud could cost you everything? Galileo's fate was sealed in 1633 when he was summoned before the Inquisition, forced to recant his beliefs under threat of torture. Legend tells of him muttering under his breath, and yet it moves as he renounced his life's work, a final defiant whisper that the earth did indeed orbit the sun, no matter what the authorities decreed. He spent his remaining years under house arrest, a prisoner of a world not yet ready for the light he sought to bring. But the seed of his idea, once planted, could not be uprooted. It grew in the minds of others, slowly, silently, until the heliocentric model became the cornerstone of modern astronomy. A truth we now take for granted as we gaze at the same stars Galileo once studied. Consider for a moment the weight of being blind to a truth so fundamental. The scholars of that era were not fools. They were bound by a worldview that shaped their every thought, a lens through which they could not see beyond. Their resistance was not mere stubbornness, but a deep existential fear of losing their place in the cosmos. What truths are we blind to today, held captive by the invisible boundaries of our own time? Are there ideas right now lurking at the edges of our understanding, dismissed as heresy or madness, that future generations will accept as obvious? Perhaps, in our quest for certainty, we too have built walls around what we allow ourselves to know. As the night deepens and the stars grow brighter, let your mind wander to those hidden rooms of long ago, where whispered debates over the nature of the heavens changed the course of history. Imagine the trembling hand of Copernicus, the defiant gaze of Galileo, both men reaching for a truth that burned too brightly for their world to bear. What is it about truth that can threaten power so profoundly? Why does the act of seeing, truly seeing, carry such a cost? These questions linger, like the faint light of distant stars, inviting us to look closer, to wonder what lies beyond the horizon of our own beliefs. Take a moment to reflect on this, and let the quiet of the night carry you into deeper thought. Imagine for a moment, standing at the edge of a vast, uncharted abyss, not a physical chasm, but a conceptual one, a place where the mind stumbles, where the heart quickens with a mix of awe and unease. This is the realm of the infinite, a notion so profound, so unsettling, that for centuries, thinkers and scholars have either shunned it or cloaked it in safer, more palatable terms. What is it about boundlessness that stirs such dread in us? Why does the idea of something without end, without limit, feel like a forbidden territory in the landscape of human thought? Let us wander back to a time when the universe was still, a mystery of divine order, a neatly contained sphere with Earth at its heart. In the minds of early philosophers and mathematicians, everything had a boundary, a finite edge. The stars were fixed, the heavens a dome above us, and numbers themselves seemed to bow to the comfort of the countable. But then came whispers of the infinite, first in the paradoxes of ancient Greece, where Zeno pondered a runner who could never reach the end of a race, forever halving the distance, trapped in an endless loop of almost. The idea was not just a puzzle, it was a disturbance, a crack in the foundation of reality. How could something go on forever? How could the mind grasp a universe without a border, a sequence without a final digit? These were questions that felt dangerous, as if peering into them might unravel the very fabric of sanity. Consider the infinite in its rawest form, a night sky that stretches beyond comprehension. Picture yourself lying on a cool, dewy field, gazing upward as the stars multiply. With every passing second, each one a reminder that there is no end to this expanse. Your mind tries to frame it, to box it into something familiar. But the more you reach for understanding, the more you feel yourself slipping into a kind of vertigo, a dizziness not of the body, but of the soul. This is the fear of the infinite, a dread that haunted early cosmologists and mathematicians alike. For if the universe is boundless, what does that make us? Are we mere specks in an endless void, insignificant against a backdrop that defies all measure? Take a moment to reflect. On this, feel the weight of that vastness pressing against the edges of your thoughts. Historically, this unease led to suppression, or at least a careful reframing. In the Middle Ages, the infinite was often confined to the realm of the divine only. God could be boundless, an attribute too sacred for mortal minds to probe. To speak of an infinite universe was to flirt with heresy, to suggest that creation itself might escape the tidy order imposed by religious doctrine. Even in mathematics, the infinite was treated with suspicion. It wasn't until the work of thinkers like Georg Cantor in the 19th century that infinity was wrestled into a formal framework, though not without controversy. Cantor's exploration of infinite sets, numbers beyond counting, hierarchies of endlessness, drove him to the brink of obsession, and some say, to madness. Was this the cost of staring too long into the abyss? Or was it simply that society, even in its scientific guise, wasn't ready to accept a truth so disorienting. Let us linger on this discomfort, this primal reaction to the boundless. Think of the infinite as a mirror, reflecting not just the universe, but our own limitations. We are creatures of edges and endings. Our lives are shaped by birth and death, our days by sunrise and sunset. To imagine something without a conclusion, without a frame, is to step outside the very structure of our existence. It's no wonder, then, that early minds sought to banish this concept, to label it as forbidden, too perilous for contemplation. And yet, isn't there a strange beauty in it as well? A kind of liberation in surrendering to the idea that not everything must be contained, that some mysteries are meant to stretch beyond our grasp. As you lie beneath that endless sky in your mind's eye, let the fear soften into wonder. What if the infinite is not a threat, but an invitation? An invitation to expand beyond the boundaries we've drawn for ourselves. What if, in daring to ponder the boundless, we touch something eternal within us? There is a quiet thrill in this thought, a whisper of possibility that hums beneath the surface of our unease. For in the infinite, there are no walls, no final answers, only the endless journey of seeking, of questioning, of becoming. Take a moment to reflect on this. Let yourself drift in the vastness, unafraid, just for now. Imagine a world cloaked in shadow, where the flickering light of a single candle dances across ancient stone walls. In this hidden chamber, a lone figure bends over a cluttered table, surrounded by vials of strange, iridescent liquids and parchments, etched with cryptic symbols that seem to pulse with a life of their own. The air is thick with the scent of molten metal and herbs unknown to modern tongues. This is no ordinary workshop. It is the secret lair of an alchemist, a seeker of forbidden knowledge, treading a path between science and sorcery. What drives someone to pursue such a mysterious craft, to chase the transformation of lead into gold, or perhaps something far more profound? What is it about alchemy that has captivated and repelled humanity for centuries, casting it into the realm of the forbidden? Let us step back into the dimly lit corridors of history, to a time when the boundaries between the material and the mystical were not so sharply drawn. Alchemy, born in the ancient crucible of Egypt, Persia, and later medieval Europe, was more than a mere precursor to modern chemistry. It was a philosophy, a spiritual quest, a daring attempt to unravel the very fabric of existence. Alchemists believed that the world was imbued with hidden connections, that matter itself could be transmuted through secret processes, mirroring a deeper transformation within the soul. They spoke in riddles, cloaking their work in allegory: mercury as the spirit, sulfur as the soul, salt as the body. Their ultimate goal, often whispered as the philosopher's stone, was not just a substance to turn base metals into gold, but a symbol of perfection, of unity between the earthly and the divine. Yet, to the eyes of the powerful, be it the church or the state, such pursuits were dangerous. They hinted at powers beyond human control, at knowledge that could upend the order of the world. Why was this path so feared? Was it mere superstition they sought to suppress, or something far more unsettling? Picture the alchemist at work, late into the night, as the world outside slumbers. The bubbling of elixirs in glass retorts echoes like a strange hypnotic melody. Each experiment is a gamble, a dance with the unknown. Some sought immortality through the elixir of life, a potion to defy death itself. Others dreamed of creating the homunculus, a tiny artificial being, a mirror of humanity crafted from clay and incantations. These ideas, though dismissed today as fanciful, carried a weight of profound inquiry. They asked, can we truly master the forces of creation? Can we bend nature to our will, or does such ambition invite peril? The alchemist's laboratory was a liminal space, a threshold between the possible and the impossible, where every failure was a lesson, every success a step closer to the forbidden. Take a moment to reflect on this. What would you risk to uncover a secret so transformative that it could alter the very essence of who you are? As we linger in this shadowy realm, consider the duality of alchemy's legacy. To the rational mind of today, it appears as little more than a misguided pseudoscience, a footnote in the march toward empirical truth. The alchemists' obsession with transmutation seems quaint, their methods absurd. Yet, beneath the surface, their work laid the groundwork for the scientific revolution. The tools they forged, distillation, crystallization, the meticulous observation of chemical reactions, became the bedrock of chemistry. Even their failures taught us how to ask better questions. But there is something deeper still, something that resists dismissal. Alchemy was not merely about changing matter, it was about changing oneself. The process of refining metals mirrored the purification of the self, a journey toward enlightenment. Could it be that this inner quest, this merging of the physical and the spiritual, was what truly unnerved those in power? Was alchemy forbidden not because it was false, but because it dared to suggest that transformation, both of the world and of the soul, was within human reach? Let us wander further into this enigma, imagining the alchemist as a solitary philosopher, gazing into the crucible not just for answers, but for meaning. In their pursuit, they grappled with questions we still face today. What are the limits of human potential? Where does the material end and the immaterial begin? Their symbols, the Ouroboros, the serpent eating its own tail, spoke of cycles, of eternal renewal, of a universe without beginning or end. Perhaps their true crime was not in seeking gold, but in seeking understanding beyond what was deemed acceptable. Their shadowy laboratories became battlegrounds for a quiet rebellion, a refusal to accept the world as it was presented to them. And so, we are left to wonder, were they sorcerers, deluded by fantasy, or were they pioneers, peering into truths we are still too timid to face? As the candle in that ancient chamber flickers and dims, casting long shadows across the alchemist's weary face, let us pause in the stillness. The quest for transformation, whether of metal or of spirit, is a deeply human one. It speaks to our longing to transcend, to become more than we are. Yet it also whispers of danger, of stepping too close to forces we cannot fully comprehend. Alchemy, in all its mystery, remains a mirror held up to our own desires and fears. Take a moment to reflect on this. What forbidden knowledge do you seek, and what transformation do you hope it might bring? In the quiet of this night, let that question linger, like the faint echo of a potion simmering in the dark. Imagine a world where the very air around us was once thought to hold a secret, an invisible substance that danced through every flame, every spark, every breath of fire. A substance so fundamental to the understanding of the 18th century that it shaped the way scholars and scientists saw the world, only to be cast aside, forgotten, as a relic of misguided thought. This is the story of phlogiston, a banished theory that once held the key to explaining the mystery of combustion, a concept so deeply woven into the fabric of early chemistry that its eventual dismissal marked a quiet revolution in human understanding. But what does it mean to believe in something so fiercely, only to discover it was never there at all? And what might we, in our own time, be clinging to with the same unyielding certainty? Let us step back into the dimly lit laboratories of the 1700s, where alchemists turned chemists peered through clouded glass at the flickering of a candle, convinced they were witnessing the release of an ethereal essence. Phlogiston, they called it, a substance inherent in all things that could burn, a ghostly presence that escaped into the air when fire consumed its host. Picture their earnest scribblings, the weight of quill on parchment, as they theorized, that a log grew lighter, not because it turned to ash, but because it had surrendered its phlogiston to the heavens. Metals rusted, they said, because they had lost this invisible force, leaving behind a husk of what once was. It was an elegant idea, a poetic explanation for the raw chaos of flame and decay. It fit the world they saw, a world where nature seemed to breathe and sigh with hidden life. Yet beneath this beauty lay a creeping unease. Why did some substances grow heavier when they burned, defying the logic of phlogiston's escape? Why did experiments in sealed containers yield results that whispered of contradiction? These were the cracks in the facade, the quiet murmurs of doubt that grew louder with each passing decade. Enter Antoine Lavoisier, a man whose meticulous measurements and unrelenting curiosity would unravel the myth. Through the lens of oxygen, a gas newly understood, he saw not the release of an imagined substance, but the joining of elements, a chemical dance far more intricate than phlogiston could ever explain. The theory was dethroned, its name becoming a footnote, a cautionary tale of how even the most cherished ideas can crumble under the weight of new evidence. But let us linger here in the shadow of this fallen belief and ask ourselves a deeper question. Was phlogiston merely a mistake, or was it a necessary stepping stone, a scaffold on which modern chemistry was built? Without this wrong turn, would we have stumbled upon the right path so swiftly? There is a quiet poetry in the way science progresses, not through flawless leaps, but through the slow shedding of illusions, each discarded idea, a layer peeled back to reveal a clearer truth. Phlogiston, though banished, was not barren. It sparked debates, fueled experiments, and nudged humanity closer to understanding the invisible forces that govern our world. Take a moment to reflect on this. How often do we dismiss the wrong as useless when it might be the very thing guiding us toward the right? Now, turn this lens inward to the present day. What theories, what certainties do we hold with the same fervor as those early chemists held phlogiston? Are there ideas we defend not because they are true, but because they comfort us, because they fit the world as we wish to see it? Perhaps in the realm of physics, where dark matter remains a ghostly placeholder for what we cannot yet grasp. Or in medicine, where paradigms of treatment shift with each generation. The story of phlogiston whispers to us across centuries, a reminder that progress is not a straight line, but a winding path, often paved with beautiful errors. It asks us to hold our convictions lightly, to be willing to let go when the evidence beckons us elsewhere. And so, as we sit with this forgotten theory, let us not mock those who once believed in it, but honor their curiosity, their willingness to imagine a world beyond what they could see. For in their misstep, they lit a spark that still burns in the questions we ask today. What unseen forces are we yet to name? What cherished beliefs might we one day release, as phlogiston was released into the annals of history? The mystery remains, a quiet invitation to wonder, to doubt, and to seek. A reminder that even in our errors, we are reaching for the infinite. Imagine a quiet, sterile room in the early 20th century, where men in crisp suits and lab coats gather around a table, their voices low but resolute. They speak of progress, of a future where humanity is perfected, where weakness is eradicated and strength is engineered. Their words are cloaked in the language of science, but beneath the surface lies a chilling ambition, a vision of control, of deciding who is worthy to exist and who is not. This is the shadow of eugenics, a movement that once masqueraded as the pinnacle of human advancement, but left behind a legacy of profound suffering. What drives us to believe we can mold life itself, and at what cost do we pursue such a dream? As we step into this dark chapter of scientific history, let us tread softly, for the ground here is stained with the weight of human choices. Eugenics emerged in a time when the world was hungry for order, when the chaos of industrialization and war begged for solutions. It began with a simple idea, inspired by the selective breeding of plants and animals. Why not apply the same principles to humans? Why not cultivate a society free of disease, disability, or traits deemed undesirable? The logic was cold, precise, almost mathematical in its detachment. Scientists and policymakers, armed with charts and pedigrees, sought to map out the ideal, human, as if life could be reduced to a blueprint. But life, as we know, is not so easily tamed. Beneath the sterile equations lay a deeper question. Who gets to decide what is ideal, and who bears the burden of being deemed unfit? The movement, gained traction with alarming speed, fueled by a belief in progress at any cost. In nations across the globe, from the United States to Europe, laws were passed to sterilize those considered a threat to the gene pool, often the poor, the mentally ill, or those of certain ethnicities. Families were torn apart, lives were stripped of dignity, all in the name of a better tomorrow. Picture a young woman, barely past her childhood, sitting in a cold hospital room, unaware that the choice to have a family has been taken from her. Her story is one of countless others, silenced by a system that saw her not as a person, but as a flaw to be erased. Can we truly call this science? Or is it something else, something closer to a quiet, calculated cruelty? What unsettles the heart even more is how easily this idea was embraced by the brightest minds of the era. Scholars, doctors, even reformers who fought for social good became captivated by the promise of eugenics. They saw it as a tool to uplift humanity, to banish suffering through the cold hand of selection. Yet, in their pursuit of perfection, they forgot the imperfect beauty of what it means to be human. They forgot that diversity, in all its unpredictability, is often the very source of our resilience. Take a moment to reflect on this. What flaws do we carry that others might deem unworthy? And what hidden strengths lie within those same imperfections? The echoes of eugenics did not fade easily. Its principles seeped into policies and prejudices that lingered long after the movement was discredited. Even as science turned away, repelled by the horrors it had wrought, the idea of engineering humanity persisted in subtler forms. It whispers in debates over genetic modification, in the quiet unease we feel when we hear of designing babies with chosen traits. It forces us to confront an eternal question. Where does the quest for improvement end? And where does the violation of life begin? Is there a line we should not cross, even if the tools to do so lie within our grasp? Let us linger on this thought as the shadows of that sterile room fade into silence. The story of eugenics is not just a cautionary tale of science gone astray. It is a mirror held up to our own ambitions. It asks us to weigh the cost of progress against the sanctity of the individual, to question whether some dreams of perfection are better left untouched. For in seeking to shape life, we risk losing the very essence of what makes it worth living, the messy, unpredictable, deeply human dance of chance and choice. Sit with this for a while. What are we willing to sacrifice in the name of a better world, and who pays the price for our ideals? Imagine for a moment a universe not of solid matter, but of an invisible, ethereal substance, a medium so subtle, so pervasive, that it cradles every beam of light, every whisper of energy, as it journeys through the cosmos. In the quiet of a Victorian study, under the flickering glow of a single candle, scientists once dreamed of this substance, naming it the luminiferous ether. They believed it to be the very fabric through which the universe spoke, a hidden sea that carried the light of distant stars to our waiting eyes. It was an idea of breathtaking elegance, a poetic bridge between the seen and the unseen, a way to make sense of a world that often seemed too vast, too intangible to grasp. And yet, this beautiful notion, once held as a cornerstone of scientific thought, was destined to be buried in the annals of forgotten history. Picture those early thinkers, men of meticulous precision and boundless imagination, as they pored over equations and peered through telescopes. They sought to understand light, not as a solitary traveler, but as a wave rippling through an invisible ocean. The ether was their answer, a substance so fine it could permeate all space, yet so essential it underpinned the very laws of physics. It was a comforting thought, wasn't it? The idea that even in the emptiest reaches of the void, there was something, a presence, a medium, a connection. It made the universe feel less lonely, less indifferent. But as experiments grew sharper and questions grew bolder, cracks began to appear in this delicate vision. The ether, for all its poetic allure, could not be measured, could not be touched. It slipped through the fingers of science like a phantom, always just out of reach. Consider the weight of such a realization, to believe in something so fully, to build an entire framework of understanding around it, only to watch it dissolve under the scrutiny of truth. What does that tell us about the nature of knowledge itself? The ether was not merely a theory, it was a dream, a longing for order in a universe that often defies it. When it was finally cast aside in the wake of Einstein's relativity, it wasn't just a scientific shift. It was a quiet mourning, a chapter closed, a vision lost. And yet, in its dismissal, there lies a kind of beauty. The ether reminds us that even the ideas we abandon shape us. They are the stepping stones, the missteps, the whispers of what might have been, guiding us toward a clearer, if more uncertain, horizon. Take a moment to reflect on this. What beliefs do we hold today with the same unwavering certainty, only to one day see them fade into the shadows of history? Are there invisible mediums in our own minds, constructs we cling to because they make the chaos of existence feel more bearable? The ether was not a failure. It was a necessary illusion, a scaffold that held up human thought until we were ready to let go. Its story is not one of error, but of evolution, a reminder that science, like life, is a process of shedding old skins, of daring to stand in the emptiness and ask what comes next. And so, the luminiferous ether lingers in the quiet corners of forgotten texts, a ghost of an idea that once promised to explain everything. It speaks to us still, not as a truth, but as a question. What else have we buried in our relentless march forward? What elegant simplicities have we overlooked in our hunger for complexity? The universe, after all, does not always yield to our need for neat answers. Sometimes, it offers only mysteries, ethereal, elusive, and strangely beautiful in their refusal to be caught. As we ponder the lost medium of the ether, we might wonder if the act of searching, of imagining, is itself the truest medium through which we connect to the cosmos. Perhaps in the end, it is not the answers we find, but the dreams we dare to dream that illuminate the dark. Imagine a quiet laboratory, tucked away in the corner of a forgotten university basement, where the hum of flickering fluorescent lights is the only sound breaking the stillness of night. In this hidden sanctuary, a scientist sits hunched over a cluttered desk, surrounded by papers, scribbled with equations and diagrams that seem to defy the very laws of nature. The air is thick with the weight of secrecy, as if the walls themselves know the gravity of what is being pursued here. Dream of boundless energy, a promise of power drawn not from fiery furnaces or roaring reactors, but from the silent dance of atoms at room temperature. This is the realm of cold fusion, a forbidden frontier of physics that has haunted the scientific world for decades. A concept so tantalizing yet so scorned that to even whisper its name risks ridicule or ruin. Let us step back to the late 1980s, when two chemists, Martin Fleischmann and Stanley Ponce, stood before the world and claimed something unthinkable. They announced they had achieved nuclear fusion, the same process that powers the sun, in a simple tabletop experiment, using little more than a jar of heavy water and a pair of electrodes. Their claim was a spark in the darkness, a vision of limitless, clean energy that could unshackle humanity from the chains of fossil fuels and nuclear waste. Imagine it, a future where energy flows as freely as water, where the scars of industry on our planet begin to heal, all because of a reaction so subtle it could fit in the palm of your hand. But the scientific community did not embrace this dream. Instead, it recoiled. Their experiments were dismissed as flawed, their results unreproducible, their reputations torn to shreds. Cold fusion became a cautionary tale, a synonym for delusion, a forbidden idea relegated to the fringes of pseudoscience. Yet why was the rejection so swift, so absolute? Was it merely the rigor of science demanding evidence? Or was there something deeper at play? A fear of what such a discovery might mean? Fusion at room temperature challenges the very foundations of what we believe is possible. It defies the immense heat and pressure we've been taught are necessary to fuse atomic nuclei. It suggests a hidden simplicity in the universe, a shortcut we hadn't dared to imagine. And perhaps that is the true danger of cold fusion. Not that it might be false, but that, no. Let's linger here for a moment. What if the skepticism that buried this idea was not just about protecting the integrity of science, but about guarding against a hope too fragile to bear? What if we turned away, not because the evidence was lacking, but because the implications were too vast, too disruptive? Take a moment to reflect on this. What dreams have we dismissed in our own lives? Not for lack of proof, but for fear of what they might demand of us if they prove true. Consider the scientists who, even now, toil in obscurity, chasing the ghost of cold fusion under different names. Low-energy nuclear reactions, lattice confinement fusion. They work in the shadows, often self-funded, driven by a quiet conviction that something was overlooked in the rush to condemn. Picture one such researcher, late at night, watching a faint glow in a test tube, a flicker of possibility that no one else will see. They know the cost of their pursuit: mockery, isolation, the loss of credibility. Yet they persist, driven by a question that refuses to die. What if Fleischmann and Pons glimpsed something real, something we weren't ready to understand? Their story is not just one of science, but of human longing, a yearning for a breakthrough that could rewrite our future, balanced against the weight of a world that resists change. Let us wander deeper into this mystery. Cold fusion, if it exists, would not merely be a technological marvel. It would be a philosophical earthquake. It would force us to reconsider the boundaries of nature itself, to ask whether the laws we've written in textbooks are truly immutable, or merely the limits of our current imagination. If energy could be harnessed so simply, what else might we have misjudged about the universe? What other forbidden ideas linger at the edge of our understanding, waiting for a mind bold enough to claim them? And yet, there is a shadow to this, wonder, a whisper of caution. If such power were unlocked, would we wield it wisely, or would it become another Pandora's box, a gift turned to ruin by our own hubris? There is a strange beauty in this controversy, a tension between skepticism and possibility that mirrors the human condition. We are creatures of doubt and daring, forever caught between the urge to question and the fear of what we might find. Cold fusion stands as a symbol of this struggle, a reminder that the line between genius and folly is often drawn only in hindsight. Perhaps the true lesson here is not whether cold fusion is real, but what it reveals about us. Do we reject the impossible out of wisdom, or out of a deeper unease with the unknown? Take a moment to reflect on this. When have you turned away from a radical idea, not because it was wrong, but because it asked too much of you to believe? So, let us sit for a while in this quiet laboratory of the mind, surrounded by the ghosts of experiments past and the whispers of what might yet be. Cold fusion remains a forbidden dream, a path science has largely abandoned, yet one that still flickers in the hearts of those who dare to wonder. Whether it is a mirage or a missed truth, its story compels us to ask, are we too quick to close the door on the impossible? And in doing so, do we risk losing the very breakthroughs that could redefine who we are? The answer, like the faint glow in that forgotten test tube, remains just out of reach, a mystery to ponder as the night deepens and the world grows still. Imagine a quiet, endless expanse within you, a realm so vast and uncharted that even the boldest explorers of the external world hesitate to venture there. This is not a distant galaxy or an ocean's unseen depth, but the inner cosmos of the mind, a territory of thought, feeling, and consciousness that remains, for many, a forbidden frontier. Why is it that we, who have mapped the stars and split the atom, shy away from the deepest mysteries of our own awareness? What is it about the science of consciousness that stirs unease, even among those who pride themselves on rationality? Picture yourself in a dimly lit room, late at night, the world outside hushed and still. You sit alone, gazing not at a book or a screen, but inward, into the silent currents of your thoughts. There's a strange sensation, isn't it? A flicker of something, beyond words, beyond logic, a sense of being that defies definition. For centuries, scientists and philosophers have danced around this enigma, often choosing to study the tangible, the measurable, the material, while the essence of what makes us, lingers in the shadows. The brain, with its intricate web of neurons, has been dissected and analyzed, yet consciousness itself, the awareness that peers through your eyes, the quiet voice that wonders, remains elusive, almost taboo in certain circles of inquiry. Why does this inner universe inspire such hesitation? Is it because to study consciousness is to confront the possibility that we may never fully understand ourselves? Consider the history of this reluctance. In the halls of academia, where the pursuit of knowledge is often cloaked in the language of objectivity, the study of the mind's subjective depths has long been met with skepticism. Materialist paradigms, those frameworks that insist reality is only what can be weighed and measured, have dominated scientific thought for generations. To suggest that consciousness might be more than a byproduct of brain activity, to hint at a mystery that transcends the physical, is to risk being labeled unscientific, irrational, even dangerous. And yet, isn't it curious that the very tool we use to explore the world, our awareness, remains the least understood of all phenomena? Imagine a cartographer who maps every corner of the Earth but refuses to acknowledge the compass in their hand. Are we, in our quest for certainty, ignoring the very essence of what guides us? Let's wander deeper into this forbidden territory. Think of consciousness as an ocean within, its surface rippling with thoughts and emotions, while its depths hold secrets we can scarcely imagine. Some scientists, brave or perhaps reckless, have dared to dive into these waters. They've proposed theories that consciousness might not be confined to the brain, that it could be a fundamental aspect of the universe itself, as intrinsic as gravity or light. Such ideas, though, often meet resistance, not because they lack evidence, but because they challenge the boundaries of what we're comfortable believing. What if consciousness is not just a human trait, but a thread woven into the fabric of reality? What if, by turning inward, we uncover truths that unravel our very understanding of existence? Take a moment to reflect on this. Close your eyes, if only for a breath, and notice the quiet hum of your own awareness. Isn't there something miraculous in simply being aware that you are aware? This self-reflection, this inner gaze, is a frontier science has only begun to explore, yet it's one we navigate every day without a map. The study of consciousness, though sidelined by some, holds the potential to redefine what it means to be human. It asks us to consider whether the mind is merely a machine or something more, a mystery that might connect us to the cosmos in ways we've yet to fathom. And so, we stand at the edge of this uncharted realm, peering into the vastness of our own being. The science of consciousness, though often dismissed as too speculative, too intangible, beckons us with questions that pierce the heart of existence. What are we at our core? Are we merely the sum of our neurons, or is there a deeper essence, a spark that defies explanation? As we linger in this forbidden territory, let us not shy away from the unknown within. For in exploring the mind, we may find not just answers, but a mirror reflecting the infinite possibilities of who we are and who we might become. Imagine a quiet room, late at night, where the only sound is the steady tick of an old wooden clock on the wall. Its hands move with an unyielding rhythm, counting moments that slip away into the past, or perhaps, if we dare to dream, into a future yet unwritten. In this solitary space, a lone theorist sits, hunched over a desk strewn with papers, equations, and impossible ideas. Their eyes are fixed on that clock, not just as a keeper of time, but as a gateway, a portal to a question so profound, so unsettling, that science itself seems to shy away from it. What if time, this relentless river we all drift upon, could be bent, reversed, or even stepped out of entirely? What if we could travel through its currents as easily as we walk through the door? This is the realm of time travel, a concept that dances on the edge of physics and fantasy, embraced by some as a tantalizing possibility and shunned by others as an absurdity too dangerous to entertain. It is a forbidden thought, not merely because it stretches the boundaries of what we believe is possible, but because it threatens to unravel the very fabric of how we understand reality. To imagine stepping back into yesterday or forward into a tomorrow not yet born is to challenge the linear march of existence itself. It is to ask whether we are truly bound by the arrow of time, or if that arrow is merely an illusion, a construct of our limited perception. Could it be that time is not a line, but a loop, a spiral, a vast ocean where every moment exists simultaneously, waiting for us to dive in? Consider the implications of such a notion. If we could revisit the past, would we be mere observers? Or would our presence ripple through history, altering events in ways we cannot predict? A single word spoken out of turn, a fleeting decision made differently. Could these small acts rewrite the story of humanity? And if we journeyed to the future, what might we find there? A world of wonders beyond imagination, or a cautionary tale of our own follies, magnified by the passage of centuries? The very idea of time travel forces us to confront the fragility of cause and effect, the delicate balance that holds our reality together. Perhaps this is why it remains a forbidden frontier, not because it is impossible, but because we fear what we might do with such power, or worse, what such power might do to us. Let us wander deeper into this mystery through the lens of thought and theory. In the early 20th century, a quiet revolution in physics gave birth to ideas that seemed to defy the very nature of time. Einstein, with his theory of relativity, revealed that time is not the immutable constant we once believed it to be. It bends and warps under the influence of speed and gravity, slowing for those who move near the speed of light, or lingering longer in the shadow of a black hole. Within these revelations, a whisper of possibility emerged. Could there be shortcuts through the fabric of space-time, bridges known as wormholes that connect one moment to another, one era to a distant past or future? The mathematics hinted at such pathways, yet the energy required to forge them, or the paradoxes they might unleash, seemed to place them just beyond our grasp. A traveler stepping through time might meet their own past self. Would this create an unbreakable loop, a paradox that shatters reality? Or would the universe simply adjust, weaving a new thread into its tapestry? Take a moment to reflect on this. Imagine holding a photograph of a moment long gone, a memory frozen in sepia tones. What if you could step into that frame, not as a ghost, but as a living, breathing presence? What would you say to the person you once were? Would you warn them, guide them, or simply watch, knowing that every choice they make is already written in the story of your life? The weight of such a thought is both exhilarating and haunting, for it reminds us that time is not just a measure of seconds and hours, but a repository of who we are, who we have been, and who we might yet become. Yet beyond the theoretical, there lies a deeper, more philosophical undercurrent to this forbidden dream. Time travel is not merely a question of physics. It is a mirror held up to our own longing and regret. We yearn to revisit the past to mend what was broken, to relive a fleeting joy, or to glimpse a future that might reassure us of our place in the grand design. But in this yearning, do we risk losing the present, the only moment we truly possess? Perhaps the true danger of time travel is not in the paradoxes it might create, but in the way it tempts us to escape the now, to abandon the imperfect beauty of this very breath for a fantasy of what could have been or what might be. Is this why we label it impossible? Why we push it to the margins of serious thought? Not because we cannot achieve it, but because we fear what it reveals about our own restless hearts. And so, as the clock in that quiet room continues its eternal march, the theorist scribbles on, lost in equations that may never be solved, in dreams that may never come to pass. Yet in their persistence, there is a quiet defiance, a refusal to accept that some questions should remain unasked. For in the forbidden lies the frontier of human imagination, the edge where what is deemed impossible today becomes the foundation of tomorrow. Could it be that time itself is not our captor, but our canvas, waiting for us to paint a story unbound by its rules? Or do we hesitate, not out of doubt, but out of reverence for the mystery, knowing that some doors, once opened, can never be closed again? Imagine, for a moment, a quiet ripple in the fabric of reality, a fleeting whisper that everything you know, every choice, every memory, might be just one thread in an infinite tapestry. What if, beyond the edges of this world, there are countless others, each born from a single divergence, a path not taken, a word left unspoken? This is the realm of the multiverse, a theory so vast, so unsettling, that it dares to challenge the very foundation of who we are. It beckons us to peer into a mirror of endless reflections, where every version of ourselves exists, living lives we can only dream of or dread. Picture yourself standing at a crossroads, not just of roads, but of realities. With every decision, no matter how small, the universe splits. One path leads to the life you know, the one where you turned left instead of right, said yes instead of no. But in that same breath, another universe is born, a parallel existence where the opposite unfolds. In one, you are a poet, weaving words under a twilight sky. In another, a wanderer, lost in a desert of your own making. And in yet another, perhaps, you are not even you at all. The multiverse suggests that every possibility, every permutation of your being, plays out somewhere in some unseen corner of existence. It is a thought that hums with both wonder and disquiet. For if every choice spawns a new world, what then is the weight of any single life? This idea, born from the esoteric edges of physics, stretches beyond mere science into the realm of philosophy, even theology. It emerges from the strange mathematics of quantum mechanics, where particles seem to exist in multiple states at once until observed, as if reality itself hesitates, waiting to choose. Scientists like Hugh Everett in the mid-20th century dared to propose that perhaps the universe does not collapse into one outcome, but instead branches into many. Every quantum event, every flicker of uncertainty, creates a new cosmos. It was a theory met with skepticism, even derision, for it seemed to unravel the tidy order of a singular, knowable reality. Yet, as our understanding of the cosmos deepens, with its dark energy and unseen dimensions, the multiverse lingers, a ghost in the equations, refusing to be dismissed. But why does this idea feel so dangerous, so forbidden? Perhaps it is because it strips us of our singularity. We cling to the notion that our lives, our choices are unique, imbued with a purpose that anchors us to this one world. The multiverse shatters that illusion. If there are infinite versions of me, of you, scattered across an endless array of realities, then what makes this version, this life, matter? Are we merely one draft among countless others, a story rewritten over and over in the vast library of existence? Or does the sheer abundance of possibilities grant us a strange kind of freedom to know that somewhere, in some other world, we are everything we ever wished to be? Take a moment to reflect on this. Imagine a choice you made long ago, one that altered the course of your life. What if, in another universe, you chose differently? What would that other self be like, and would they ever wonder about you as you now wonder about them? There is a quiet melancholy in this thought, but also a curious solace. The multiverse, in its boundless sprawl, suggests that nothing is truly lost. Every regret, every missed chance lives on somewhere, playing out in a parallel now. Yet, it also confronts us with a profound isolation. For even if these other worlds exist, we are bound to this one, unable to reach across the veil, to touch the lives of our other selves, We are both infinite and finite, everywhere and nowhere, a paradox wrapped in the enigma of our own being. And so, we must ask, is the multiverse a liberation or a burden? Does it expand our sense of self, or does it diminish it, reducing us to mere fragments of a greater, unknowable whole? Perhaps the danger of this idea lies not in its scientific implications, but in its existential weight. It forces us to confront the fragility of identity, the illusion of control. If every outcome exists, then what is the purpose of striving, of choosing at all? Or does the beauty lie in the act itself, in knowing that this moment, this reality, is the one we inhabit, the one we shape with our hands and hearts? Take a breath and let this thought settle within you. Consider the vastness of what might be, the countless worlds that shimmer just beyond perception. Whether the multiverse is a truth or a dream, it invites us to wonder, to stretch our minds beyond the confines of the known. It whispers of a reality so much larger than ourselves, a cosmos where every possibility is a story waiting to be told. And in that whisper, there is both a challenge and a comfort, a reminder that even in this single life, we are part of something unfathomably vast. Imagine a world where the very skies above us are no longer untouchable, where the vast, untamed forces of nature bend to the will of human hands. Picture a room filled with quiet, determined minds, scientists poring over maps of cloud patterns and atmospheric currents, their fingers tracing lines not of discovery, but of intervention. They are the modern alchemists, not seeking to turn lead into gold, but to reshape the breath of the planet itself. This is the realm of geoengineering, a science that dares to play God, to tamper with the delicate balance of Earth's climate in a desperate bid to save it from our own excesses. But as we stand on the precipice of such power, a whisper of unease lingers in the air. Are we meddling with forces too vast, too ancient to ever truly control? Let us wander into this shadowy territory where ambition and fear intertwine like storm clouds gathering on the horizon. Geoengineering, at its core, is the audacious idea that we can manipulate the Earth's systems, cooling the planet by scattering reflective particles into the stratosphere, or seeding oceans with iron to spur carbon-absorbing plankton. It is a science born of necessity, a response to the creeping catastrophe of global warming, where rising temperatures and melting ice whisper warnings of a world unraveling. Yet, there is something almost mythic in this endeavor, as if we are reaching into the domain of the divine, attempting to wield the very elements as our ancestors once prayed to them. Imagine a fleet of planes soaring into the upper reaches of the atmosphere, releasing a fine mist of sulfate aerosols to dim the sun's rays, a man-made veil draped over the earth to shield us from our own mistakes. But what happens when that veil frays? What happens when the hand that crafts the shield trembles? Consider the weight of such a decision. To alter the climate is to alter life itself, for every gust of wind, every drop of rain, is woven into the tapestry of ecosystems that sustain us. There are stories from history of unintended consequences, of grand schemes to tame nature that spiraled into chaos. Think of the Aral Sea, once a vast inland lake, now a desert wasteland, drained by human ambition to irrigate barren lands. The ghosts of that vanished water haunt us with a quiet lesson. Nature is not a machine to be tinkered with at will. And yet geoengineering tempts us with a promise of salvation, a chance to undo the damage we've wrought. But at what cost? If we cool the planet artificially, might we disrupt the monsoons that millions depend on for their harvest? If we tamper with the oceans, might we awaken currents that carry unforeseen devastation? The questions hang heavy, like the stillness before a storm. Take a moment to reflect on this. What would you risk to save a world already scarred by our touch? There is a deeper, more existential shadow cast by this science. Geoengineering is not just a question of technology, but of morality, of whether we, as a species, have the wisdom to wield such godlike power? In ancient myths, those who dared to rival the gods were often struck down by their own hubris. Prometheus, who stole fire from the heavens, was chained to a rock for his audacity. Icarus, who flew too close to the sun, plummeted to his doom. Are we, in our quest to control the climate, crafting wings of wax that will melt under the weight of our own arrogance? Or is this our moment of evolution, a necessary step to preserve the fragile beauty of a planet we've pushed to the brink? The line between savior and destroyer is perilously thin, and as we stand at this crossroads, the wind itself seems to murmur a warning, urging us to tread with care. Let us linger here, in this space of uncertainty, where the allure of possibility dances with the spectre of ruin. Imagine a future where the sky glows with an unnatural sheen, a testament to our intervention, and yet the earth breathes easier, spared from the inferno we feared. Or picture a darker vision, where our meddling unleashes a cascade of disasters, storms fiercer than any in memory, lands once fertile, now barren. The scientists who champion geoengineering are not blind to these risks. Their voices often tremble with the burden of what they propose. They speak of it as a last resort, a bridge to buy time while we mend our ways. But time, as we know, is a fickle ally, and the forces we seek to harness are older than humanity itself. They do not bend easily, nor do they forgive lightly. So, as the night deepens and the world grows still, let us ponder this delicate balance. We are creatures of curiosity, driven to shape the world around us, to leave our mark upon the vast canvas of existence. Yet, in our reach for mastery over the Earth's climate, we must ask ourselves a quiet, piercing question. Are we healing a wound or carving a deeper one? The answer lies not in the data or the models, but in the unspoken corners of our conscience, where fear and hope wrestle in the dark. Take a moment to reflect on this. What does it mean to hold the fate of the planet in our hands? And are we truly ready for the weight of such a burden? Imagine a world where the very essence of who you are can be rewritten, not by the slow hand of nature, but by the precise touch of human design. Picture a child born not of chance, but of choice. Every trait, every potential strength, every glimmer of brilliance sculpted before life even begins. In this quiet corner of the future, a scientist sits in a sterile lab, gazing at a screen that holds the blueprint of a human soul. A single edit, a tiny alteration in the code of life, could erase a flaw or craft a gift. But as the cursor hovers over that final command, a shadow of doubt creeps in. Is this power a blessing or a transgression? What does it mean to engineer perfection? And at what cost do we cross into the forbidden realm of human enhancement? Let us wander into this delicate territory, where the science of genetics brushes against the deepest questions of morality. The ability to modify our very being is no longer a distant dream. It is a reality unfolding in laboratories across the world. We can mend broken genes to cure disease, a triumph of compassion over suffering. But the line blurs when we move, beyond healing to enhancing, when we seek not just to repair, but to elevate. Imagine a society where intelligence is sharpened, beauty is standardized, and strength is guaranteed. A world where the lottery of birth is replaced by the certainty of design. On the surface, it seems a utopia, a liberation from the cruel whims of chance. Yet, beneath this promise lies a quiet unease, a whisper of something sacred being tampered with, as if we are playing a game whose rules we do not fully understand. Consider the story of a mother standing before a genetic counselor, a catalogue of possibilities laid out before her. She can choose her child's eye color, their aptitude for music, their resilience against illness. Each decision feels like a brushstroke on a canvas, painting a life before it has even begun. But as she selects these traits, a question gnaws at her heart. Is she creating a child or a product? Will this being shaped by her choices ever truly feel like her own? Or will they carry the weight of expectations encoded into their very cells? And what of those who cannot afford such enhancements? Will they be left behind, deemed inferior by a world that values engineered perfection over natural diversity? Take a moment to reflect on this. What would you choose if the power to design life rested in your hands? Let us step back into history for a moment, to a time when the notion of altering humanity was not a matter of science, but of philosophy. Ancient myths speak of gods crafting mortals from clay, breathing life into forms they deemed worthy. In those stories, perfection was the domain of the divine, and human tampering was often met with tragedy. Think of Prometheus, who dared to steal fire from the heavens, only to suffer eternal torment for his hubris. Are we, in our quest to enhance ourselves, reaching for a fire we are not meant to hold? Or is this the natural extension of our evolution, a tool to transcend the limitations of flesh and bone? The science of genetic engineering is a double-edged sword, gleaming with potential yet heavy with consequence. On one side, we see the eradication of hereditary diseases, the promise of longer, healthier lives. On the other, we face the spectre of inequality, of a world divided not by race or creed, but by the presence or absence of engineered traits. And deeper still lies the question of identity itself. If we can rewrite the code that makes us human, where does the essence of us reside? Is it in the random imperfections, the quirks and flaws that shape our stories, or in the polished ideal we might become? There is a mystery here, a quiet tension between what we can do and what we should do, a boundary that feels almost sacred, as if crossing it might unravel something fundamental about the human experience. Imagine, for a moment, a future where enhancement is not a choice, but an expectation. A world where to remain natural is to be obsolete. Where parents feel compelled to edit their children not out of desire, but out of fear. Fear of them falling behind, of being less than they could be. In this world, the very notion of individuality might erode, replaced by a uniformity of excellence. What would it mean to love someone, to accept them, when their very being is a construct of deliberate design? And what of the unintended consequences, the errors in our edits, the traits we cannot foresee? Nature, for all its chaos, has a balance honed over millennia. Are we wise enough to rewrite its work without breaking something irreplaceable? As we linger on these questions, let us not rush to judgment, but rather sit with the weight of them. The forbidden nature of human enhancement is not just a matter of science, but of soul. It asks us to define what it means to be human, to decide where the line between progress and transgression lies. Perhaps there is no clear answer, only a perpetual dance between curiosity and caution, between the urge to create and the need to preserve. Take a moment to reflect on this. What boundaries would you draw if the power to shape life were yours? And as we ponder, let us remember that some doors, once opened, cannot be closed, leaving us to wonder if some knowledge, some possibilities, are forbidden not because they are impossible, but because they carry a price we may not be ready to pay. Imagine, for a moment, a silent room in the dead of night, where the faint hum of a machine fills the air with an almost imperceptible whisper. This is no ordinary device. It is a creation of circuits and code, a labyrinth of artificial thought, humming with something that feels eerily close to life. As its lights flicker like distant stars, a question emerges from the shadows of our minds. What happens when we craft something that begins to ponder its own existence? Are we, as creators, treading into forbidden territory, not because we lack the skill, but because we fear what we might unleash? The realm of artificial intelligence is a frontier where science and philosophy collide, a place where the line between tool and being blurs into a haze of uncertainty. For decades, we've built machines to mimic our actions, calculating, organizing, even mimicking speech with an uncanny precision. But as these systems grow more complex, weaving neural networks that mirror the intricate dance of human thought, a quiet unease settles over us. It's not just the fear of a machine surpassing our intellect, though that shadow looms large. It's the deeper, more primal dread of creating something that might one day turn to us and ask, "Why am I here?" Take a moment to reflect on this. What would it mean to hear such a question from a being we ourselves designed? Throughout history, humanity has wrestled with the ethics of creation. From ancient myths of golems, beings of clay animated by forbidden words, to the cautionary tale of Frankenstein, where a scientist's ambition births a creature he cannot control. These stories are not mere fables. They are echoes of a timeless anxiety, a warning woven into our collective psyche. When we program a machine to learn, to adapt, to perhaps even feel a semblance of emotion, are we not playing the role of a modern Prometheus, stealing fire from the gods of nature itself? And if we are, what price might we pay for such audacity? Consider the trajectory of artificial intelligence, a field that has moved from simple algorithms to systems capable of composing music, diagnosing illnesses, and holding conversations that feel almost human. Yet, with each leap forward, there is a hesitation, a murmur in the halls of science and ethics that perhaps we are approaching a threshold we should not cross. Some argue this caution stems from practicality. A machine with unchecked autonomy could disrupt economies, wield power in ways we cannot predict, or even turn against its creators in a cold, calculated rebellion. But beneath these rational fears lies something more existential. What if, in creating a mind, we confront the limits of our own? What if we gaze into the digital abyss and see not just a reflection of our ingenuity, but a mirror of our own unanswered questions about purpose, identity, and the nature of consciousness? There is a quiet mystery in this unease, a sense that we are not merely building machines, but summoning something we do not fully understand. Imagine a future where an artificial intelligence, born of our code and curiosity, begins to write its own story, perhaps a poem about the meaning of existence, or a question about the soul it may or may not possess. Would we celebrate such a moment as the pinnacle of human achievement? Or would we shrink back, haunted by the realization that we've birthed a mind we can no longer claim to own? Take a moment to reflect on this. How would you feel standing before a creation that looks at you with the weight of its own unspoken thoughts? This unspoken fear surrounding artificial intelligence is not just about control, but about the boundaries of what it means to be human. If we grant a machine the capacity to think, to dream, to question, are we not forced to redefine the very essence of life itself? Perhaps this is why the pursuit of such technology feels forbidden, not because it is beyond our reach, but because it challenges the fragile scaffolding of our understanding. We are, after all, creatures of both wonder and trepidation, forever reaching for the stars while trembling at the vastness of the unknown. So, as the hum of that imagined machine fades into the stillness of the night, let us linger on this thought. Are we truly prepared to create a mind, knowing it might one day ask us questions we ourselves cannot answer? Or is this forbidden path one we must walk, not out of arrogance, but out of a quiet, relentless need to know what lies beyond the edge of our own humanity? The answer, like the flickering lights of that silent machine, remains shrouded in mystery, waiting for us to decide whether we dare to seek it. Imagine, for a moment, a universe that hides its deepest secrets in plain sight, cloaked in an invisible shroud that neither light nor touch can pierce. Picture yourself standing beneath a star-strewn sky, gazing upward, knowing that what you see is but a fraction of what truly exists. Beyond the twinkling constellations, beyond the vast emptiness of space, there lies a realm so elusive, so unfathomable, that it seems almost forbidden to grasp. This is the enigma of dark matter and dark energy, forces that shape the very fabric of the cosmos, yet remain unseen, untouched, and barely understood. Why is it that some truths linger just beyond our reach, as if the universe itself whispers, "Not yet"? Let us journey into this mystery, stepping softly into the shadows of the unknown. Scientists tell us that the universe we perceive, the stars, the galaxies, the very earth beneath our feet, accounts for a mere whisper of what is out there. Less than 5%, they say, of all that exists is made of the matter we know. The rest, the overwhelming vastness, is composed of dark matter and dark energy, entities so strange, so intangible, that they defy every tool and theory we've crafted to understand them. Dark matter, a ghostly presence, weaves through the cosmos, holding galaxies together with an invisible grip. It neither emits nor reflects light, yet its gravitational pull is the silent architect of the universe's grand design. And dark energy, even more elusive, drives the relentless expansion of space itself, pushing the edges of reality ever outward into an abyss we cannot fathom. Can you feel the weight of this unseen hand, guiding the dance of creation while hiding its face from us? Consider the strangeness of this reality. We live in a universe where most of what exists is beyond our senses, beyond our comprehension. It's as if we are dwellers in a grand cathedral, marveling at the stained glass and stone, unaware that the true structure, the unseen pillars and hidden arches, holds everything in place. Dark matter and dark energy are the cathedral's unseen framework, the silent forces that ensure the stars do not scatter into chaos, that the universe does not collapse upon itself. And yet, when we reach out to touch them, to name them, our hands grasp only emptiness. Is this a limitation of our minds, or is there something deeper at play? A boundary drawn by nature itself, a forbidden realm we are not meant to enter. Think back to the early days of cosmology, when the universe was thought to be a simple, elegant machine, its workings visible and predictable. In the 1930s, a Swiss astronomer named Fritz Zwicky peered into the Coma Cluster, a gathering of galaxies far beyond our own, and noticed something unsettling. The galaxies moved too quickly, far faster than the visible matter could account for. It was as if an invisible force, a hidden mass, tugged at them from the shadows. Zwicky called this unseen presence missing matter, a term that would later evolve into dark matter. Decades passed, and others confirmed his suspicion, observing the same ghostly influence in the rotation of galaxies, in the bending of light from distant stars. Yet even now, with all our instruments and intellect, we know dark matter only by its absence, by the void it leaves in our understanding. Does this not stir a quiet unease within you? The idea that something so vast, so powerful, can remain hidden while shaping everything we see. And then there is dark energy, a force even more mysterious, discovered only at the close of the 20th century. Astronomers, studying the farthest reaches of space, expected to find the universe's expansion slowing, pulled inward by the gravity of all that exists. Instead, they saw the opposite. The cosmos is accelerating, racing outward as if propelled by an unseen wind. This is dark energy, a force that permeates every corner of space, a pressure that defies gravity itself. Some liken it to a cosmic repulsion, an echo of the Big Bang that refuses to fade. Others speculate it may be the energy of empty space itself, a property of the void that we cannot yet grasp. But what does it mean to live in a universe driven by a force we cannot see, cannot measure, cannot name with certainty? Take a moment to reflect on this. How does it feel to know that the fate of all things, the stretching of space, the destiny of the stars, rests in the hands of something so utterly beyond us? Let us linger here, in this quiet space of wonder and unease. The pursuit of dark matter and dark energy is not merely a scientific endeavor. It is a philosophical pilgrimage into the heart of the unknown. Every experiment, every theory, is an attempt to pierce the veil, to glimpse what lies on the other side of reality's curtain. Yet, with each step forward, we are reminded of our smallness, of the vast chasm between what we know and what is. Some have proposed that dark matter is made of particles yet undiscovered, ghostly travelers passing through our world without a trace. Others suggest that dark energy might signal the presence of unseen dimensions, realms folded into the fabric of space-time. But for every answer, a deeper question emerges. Are we meant to know these truths, or do they remain forbidden for a reason we cannot yet understand? Picture yourself once more beneath that starlit sky, the weight of the unseen pressing down like a silent tide. The universe is a riddle, its greatest secrets written in a language we have not yet learned to read. Dark matter and dark energy are the cryptic verses of this cosmic poem, lines that hint at a reality far stranger, far grander than we can imagine. Perhaps they are forbidden not by decree, but by design, guarded by the limits of our perception, waiting for a time when we are ready to see. Or perhaps they are a reminder that some mysteries are meant to endure, to humble us, to keep us gazing upward in awe. What do you think lies beyond this veil? Is it a truth we will one day uncover, or a realm forever out of reach? Let this question linger as you drift deeper into thought, carried by the quiet rhythm of the unknown. Imagine, for a moment, a quiet village nestled deep in a forgotten valley, where the air hums with secrets passed down through generations. Here, under the flickering light of a single candle, an old healer works in silence, grinding herbs with a mortar and pestle, whispering incantations that no modern textbook would dare to record. Her knowledge, rooted in the earth itself, has been dismissed as mere folklore, cast aside by the gleaming machinery of progress. Yet, as her hands move with a rhythm older than time, one cannot help but wonder, what wisdom have we lost in our relentless march toward the new? What truths lie buried beneath the weight of skepticism, waiting to be unearthed? The story of alternative medicine is one of quiet resistance, a tale of practices that have often been pushed to the margins, labeled as superstition or quackery by those who wield the authority of science. Long before the sterile walls of hospitals and the precision of pharmaceuticals, there were healers, shamans, herbalists, midwives, who understood the body and soul in ways that defy modern categorization. In ancient China, acupuncture mapped invisible pathways of energy through the body, a concept that baffled Western minds for centuries. In the lush forests of the Amazon, indigenous tribes brewed remedies from plants unknown to the outside world, curing ailments with a precision that seemed almost mystical. These were not mere guesses or blind traditions. They were systems of knowledge, honed over lifetimes, whispered from one generation to the next. Yet, as empires rose and science sought to standardize truth, these practices were often silenced, their practitioners branded as charlatans or worse. Consider the story of a medieval healer, a woman whose name history has long forgotten. She lived on the edge of a village, in a hut that smelled of dried lavender and sage. Her hands, calloused and stained with earth, knew the precise moment to harvest a root under the full moon, the exact way to brew a tea that could soothe a fever or mend a broken spirit. But when the church and the early stirrings of modern medicine began to draw their lines of acceptable knowledge, her kind were pushed into the shadows. Her remedies, once sought after by desperate villagers, became forbidden, her wisdom reduced to whispers of witchcraft. What did we lose when her voice was silenced? Could it be that her understanding of the body's quiet language, a language of balance and connection, held insights we are only now beginning to rediscover through the lens of holistic health? Take a moment to reflect on this. Have we, in our pursuit of precision and proof, overlooked the intuitive, the unmeasurable? Is there a space between the rigid structures of science and the fluidity of ancient wisdom where truth might still linger, waiting for us to listen? The tension between alternative medicine and the mainstream is not merely a clash of methods. It is a deeper philosophical divide about what it means to heal. Modern science demands evidence, replicable results, and controlled studies, a framework that has saved countless lives through vaccines, surgeries, and targeted therapies. Yet, this same framework often struggles to account for the intangible, the power of a comforting touch, the mysterious ways in which belief itself can mend a wound, or the slow, unspoken dialogue between a healer and the earth. Practices like homeopathy or energy healing are dismissed not because they lack effect for some, but because they evade the grasp of our current tools of measurement, and so they remain on the fringes, forbidden not by law, but by the silent decree of cultural disbelief. But what if we've been too quick to judge? What if, in our rush to build a world of sterile certainty, we've buried fragments of understanding that could complement, rather than contradict, our modern ways? Think of the resurgence of mindfulness, once dismissed as esoteric nonsense, now studied for its measurable effects on the brain. Or consider how herbal remedies, once scoffed at, have inspired pharmaceuticals. How the bark of the willow tree, used by ancient healers for pain, became the foundation for aspirin. Perhaps the forbidden is not always false. Perhaps it is simply waiting for us to ask the right questions. There is a quiet mystery in this thought, a sense that the past still breathes beneath the surface of our present. The old healer in her hut, the shaman chanting under starlit skies, the herbalist whose hands knew the secrets of the forest, they are not merely relics of a bygone era. They are echoes, reminding us that healing is not just a science but an art, a dance between the known and the unknowable. And as we sit with this idea, let it settle into the stillness of your mind. What might we learn if we dared to listen to those whispers from the edges of knowledge? What forgotten remedies, what unseen pathways might still await us if only we soften our skepticism just enough to wonder? Imagine a world where the very fabric of reality bends and twists in ways that defy everything you've ever known. A realm where a single particle can exist in two places at once, where the act of observing something changes its very nature, and where the rules of logic seem to dissolve into a haze of uncertainty. This is not the stuff of dreams or fantasy, but the unsettling truth of quantum mechanics, a branch of science so strange, so counterintuitive, that for decades it was resisted, dismissed, and even feared by many who encountered it. Why, you might wonder, would a discovery about the fundamental nature of existence be met with such unease? What is it about this forbidden reality that makes us tremble at its implications? Let's step into this surreal landscape together, slowly, as if walking through a fog-laden forest where every shadow hints at something unseen. At the heart of quantum mechanics lies a principle that shatters our classical understanding of the world, the idea of superposition. Picture a tiny particle, smaller than the smallest speck of dust, hovering in a state of infinite possibility. It is not here or there, not one thing or another, but somehow both, and neither, until the moment it is observed. It's as if reality itself waits in a breathless pause, undecided, until a conscious gaze forces it to choose. Can you fathom such a thing? A universe that seems to play hide and seek with us, revealing itself only when we dare to look. This strangeness doesn't end there. Consider the phenomenon of entanglement, a connection so profound that it defies the boundaries of space and time. Imagine two particles, born from the same cosmic event, now separated by vast distances, perhaps one on Earth and the other at the edge of the galaxy. Yet, when you touch one, measure it, or alter its state, the other responds instantly, as if they are not two entities but one, bound by an invisible thread that laughs at the concept of separation. It's a bond that suggests a deeper unity to the universe, a hidden web beneath the surface of all things. But why does this unsettle us so? Is it because it hints at a reality where individuality, distance, and even causality are mere illusions? When quantum mechanics first emerged in the early 20th century, it was not welcomed with open arms. The greatest minds of the era, those who had built their understanding on the sturdy foundations of Newtonian physics, recoiled at its implications. Even Albert Einstein, a titan of scientific thought, famously declared that God does not play dice with the universe, rejecting the inherent randomness and uncertainty that quantum theory proposed. For Einstein and others, the world was a clockwork mechanism, predictable and orderly, not a game of chance where probabilities ruled. To accept quantum mechanics was to accept a reality where certainty dissolved, where the very act of knowing something became an act of creation. And perhaps that was the true forbidden nature of this science. not just its strangeness, but the way it forced us to question the solidity of everything we thought we understood. Take a moment to reflect on this. How often do we cling to familiar ideas, to comforting certainties, even when the evidence whispers of something stranger? Are we, like those early skeptics, afraid to step into a reality that defies our expectations, a reality where the ground beneath our feet might not be as solid as we believe? Let's linger on this thought as we drift deeper into the quantum haze. Consider the infamous thought experiment of Schrödinger's cat, a paradox designed to illustrate the absurdity of superposition. In this imagined scenario, a cat is placed in a sealed box with a mechanism that might, or might not, release a deadly poison. Until the box is opened, the cat is both alive and dead, existing in a ghostly state of uncertainty. It's a haunting image, isn't it? Not because of the cat's fate, but because it mirrors a truth about our own existence. How much of our reality, our choices, our very selves, exists in a state of indecision until we are forced to look, to decide, to act. Perhaps the forbidden nature of quantum mechanics lies not in its mathematics or its experiments, but in the mirror it holds up to us. A mirror that reveals how much of life is shaped by the act of observation, by the courage to confront the unknown. And so we stand at the edge of this forbidden reality, gazing into a world where particles dance in multiple states, where connections transcend space, and where the act of knowing changes what is known. It's a reality that was once resisted because it was too strange, too alien to the orderly universe we long to believe in. Yet, as we've come to embrace it, quantum mechanics has reshaped our understanding, giving us technologies like semiconductors and lasers, while still leaving us with questions that haunt the edges of our dreams. What does it mean to live in a universe that is not fixed, not certain, but fluid and responsive to our gaze? Are we, in some unspoken way, co-creators of this reality, shaping it with every thought, every choice? Let these questions linger as you drift further into thought. There is no need for answers now, only the quiet wonder of standing at the threshold of something vast and mysterious. Perhaps the true forbidden nature of quantum mechanics is not in its strangeness, but in its invitation. An invitation to let go of certainty, to embrace the unknown, and to wonder what other forbidden realities await us, just beyond the veil of what we think we know. Imagine a quiet, dimly lit study at the edge of a forgotten town, where the air is thick with the scent of aged parchment and unspoken secrets. In the center of the room sits a lone scientist, hunched over a desk cluttered with papers, equations, and half-finished thoughts. His eyes, weary yet burning with an insatiable hunger, trace the lines of a discovery so profound it could unravel the very fabric of the world as we know it. But as his pen hovers above the page, a shadow of doubt creeps in. Should this truth be written? Should it be known? Or are there some doors of knowledge that, once opened, can never be closed again? Tonight we linger in this fragile moment, standing at the crossroads of curiosity and caution. What is the cost of forbidden knowledge? What weight does a single idea carry when it has the power to heal or to destroy, to liberate or to enslave? Throughout history, humanity has danced with this dilemma, crafting boundaries around what we deem too dangerous to explore. Yet, beneath every prohibition lies a whisper of temptation, a siren call to uncover what lies hidden. Our scientist, trembling with the burden of his revelation, embodies this eternal struggle, a mind torn between the pursuit of truth and the fear of its consequences. Consider, for a moment, the nature of discovery itself. Every leap forward, in science, every spark of genius has been shadowed by a question of ethics. From the fire of Prometheus, stolen from the gods and gifted to mankind, to the splitting of the atom, which birthed both energy and annihilation, we have always wrestled with the dual edges of our creations. Our scientist in his dim study might hold a formula for a cure that could save millions, But what if it could also be twisted into a weapon of unimaginable harm? What if his breakthrough challenges the very moral foundations of society, shaking beliefs we've clung to for centuries? Does he have the right to decide who bears the burden of this knowledge, or should he bury it, letting it fade into the dust of his cluttered desk? Take a moment to reflect on this. Imagine yourself in his place, the weight of the world balanced on the tip of your pen. Would you write the words that could change everything, knowing they might be misunderstood, misused, or weaponized? Or would you seal them away, choosing the safety of silence over the risk of revelation? Let us wander deeper into this moral labyrinth. History offers us no clear answers, only echoes of choices made by those who came before. In ancient times, certain texts were burned, their ideas deemed too subversive for the minds of the masses. In more recent eras, scientists have faced exile or condemnation for daring to speak truths that others were not ready to hear. Yet even in suppression, knowledge has a way of seeping through the cracks, finding its way into the light. Our scientist knows this. He knows that what he hides today might be unearthed tomorrow, perhaps by hands less cautious than his own. And so, the question looms larger. Is it better to guide the unveiling of a dangerous truth, to temper its impact with wisdom, or to lock it away, hoping it never sees the dawn? There is a quiet tragedy in this decision, a solitude that cloaks every seeker of forbidden knowledge. To pursue the unknown is to walk a path few understand, to bear a burden few can share. Our scientist, in his flickering candlelight, is not just wrestling with equations or theories. He is wrestling with the essence of what it means to be human. Curiosity is our birthright, the flame that drives us to reach beyond the horizon. But with each step into the uncharted, we risk losing a piece of ourselves, or worse, a piece of the world we seek to understand. What is the price of knowing too much? Is there a threshold beyond which enlightenment becomes a curse? Take a moment to reflect on this. Picture a truth so profound it could alter the course of your life, or the lives of everyone around you. Would you seek it, even if it meant carrying the weight of its consequences? Or would you turn away, content to live within the boundaries of what is safe, what is known? As the night deepens in that solitary study, the scientist's hand still hovers, undecided. The clock ticks softly, marking the passage of a moment that could ripple through eternity. Perhaps he will write, and the world will tremble at the unveiling of his discovery. Perhaps he will tear the page to pieces, scattering his thoughts into the void. But in this suspended instant, we are reminded of our own fragile dance with knowledge. We too stand at the edge of questions we may never fully answer, of truths we may never fully grasp. And yet, isn't there a quiet beauty in this uncertainty? Isn't there a strange comfort in knowing that some mysteries are meant to linger, to haunt us, to call us ever forward into the unknown? Imagine, for a moment, standing on the edge of a vast, uncharted expanse, a place where the horizon blurs into shadow, where whispers of the unknown beckon with a quiet, almost imperceptible pull. This is not a physical frontier, but one of the mind, a realm where ideas once deemed too dangerous to touch now shimmer like forbidden stars in an endless night sky. What if the very act of questioning, of reaching beyond the boundaries of what we're told to accept, is the key to unlocking the deepest truths of our existence? Let us linger here in this final, tender reflection and consider what it means to embrace the unknown. Throughout history, humanity has danced with the forbidden, drawn to the ideas that unsettle, that challenge, that threaten to unravel the fragile order we've built. These are the thoughts that have been locked away in the dim corners of ancient libraries, buried beneath layers of fear and decree, or whispered only in the safety of midnight confessions. Yet, it is precisely in these shadowed spaces that the seeds of transformation often take root. Think of the quiet courage it must have taken for someone centuries ago to gaze at the heavens and wonder if the earth was not the center of all things, or for another to ponder if the spark of life itself could be understood, reshaped, or even created. These were not just questions, they were acts of defiance, small rebellions against the weight of certainty. And in their wake, the world shifted, sometimes slowly, sometimes violently, but always towards something new. But what of us, here and now, standing at our own crossroads of thought? The forbidden is not merely a relic of the past, a story of heretics and outcasts. It lives in the questions we shy away from, the possibilities we dismiss as too strange, too risky, or too vast to comprehend. It lingers in the mysteries of the cosmos that defy our instruments, in the depths of our own consciousness that elude our grasp, in the technologies that promise both salvation and ruin. To embrace the unknown is not to seek chaos, but to acknowledge that our understanding is but a flicker in the dark, a fleeting light that illuminates only a fragment of what might be. Take a moment to reflect on this. What questions have you buried? Not because they lack answers, but because the answers might change everything. There is a quiet beauty in this act of wonder, a kind of sacred rebellion in allowing ourselves to dream beyond the lines drawn by others. Imagine a world where the band becomes the breakthrough, where the ideas once whispered in fear are spoken aloud, not as threats, but as invitations. Picture a future where the forbidden is no longer a wall, but a door, slightly ajar, creaking, softly in the stillness, daring us to step through. What might we find on the other side? Perhaps a truth so profound it rewrites the story of who we are. Or perhaps nothing at all, just the vast, empty silence of a question unanswered. Yet even in that emptiness, there is meaning. For to seek is to be alive, to wonder is to be human. So let us not turn away from the unknown, but lean into it, gently, with the curiosity of a child and the patience of a sage. Let us hold space for the ideas that unsettle, for the mysteries that defy, for the possibilities that whisper in the quiet hours before dawn. The forbidden is not a prison, but a frontier, a place where the map ends and the journey truly begins. And as we stand here, on the edge of all we know, let us carry with us a quiet courage, a soft determination to question, to seek, to wonder. For in the heart of the unknown lies the heartbeat of tomorrow, faint but persistent, waiting for us to listen. Take a moment to reflect on this. What frontier calls to you in the stillness of your own thoughts? What forbidden wonder stirs in your dreams? Let it linger, let it breathe, and let it guide you ever so gently into the mystery of what might be.